Caleb Vanderberg is the worship director at Vertical Church Ovilla, but that's not what he's always done.
That's right.
So today we're going to talk about his journey from performance artist to worship director.
Hey, welcome to our podcast. I'm so glad you clicked on the video. If you would, go ahead and like this video, and you can subscribe to our channel. We come out with podcasts every Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock. If you have any thoughts, please comment, or if you want to share this with someone else, you should do that. Share it. And let's hear more about Caleb Vanderberg's life.
Yeah. So we don't get to hear from Caleb a lot on the podcast, but we're probably going to make him more of a regular, so that's a good thing.
Come on
so
now.
It'll be great.
Mostly everyone sees him and hears him on stage on Sunday mornings leading the worship here at Vertical Church, and they love all of that. But Caleb doesn't always have the time to tell the backstory of what happened before this. So today we're going to kind of do a deep dive, not kind of, but we are going to do a deep dive into Caleb's life, because the journey from who he was to who he is, some might think it's not very far, but in reality, there's some vast differences between what he used to do and be and even who he is today. So we're excited to get to that point where he talks about what that transition has been like and some of the joys in that, some of the tension involved in that. So, of course, Truett is here with us as normally is. And as you'll find out today, Truett and I have known Caleb for how many years? 16
Since
years.
2007.
It's 2023,
16 years, and Truett knew him as a seven. Truett was seven when he met Caleb, and so Truett knows him from the earlier version, as you'll hear today. So that's time. That's enough time for me talking. Let's move on to Caleb here. So let's go way back. Caleb, you grew up in a home that was filled with music. It was a regular thing for your home.
Yep.
What were your earliest memories of that, and what was it like growing up in a home filled with music?
Yeah, my earliest memories, it's kind of all a blur. Obviously, it's been, such a long time has gone by since. But probably my earliest memories would be when we lived, I think it was in Hutchins or Lancaster.
Okay.
We lived in a mobile home, and in the front room of the house, I kept my black Junior drum set in there. And I remember specifically, I had somehow gotten a bunch of these VeggieTale stickers, and I covered this little Junior kit with all these VeggieTale stickers.
Wow.
And but that was just kind of what I would jam on,
Now, how old are you at this point?
Oh gosh. I couldn't tell you, maybe 5 or 6.
Okay, good. I just don't want people to think you were 13 and put VeggieTale stickers on you. But 5 or 6 playing drums, a set.
Yeah,
And there's videos of you at 2 or 3 or something like that playing drums, right? Or something crazy.
I don't know. My parents may have some videos. I know there's definitely some photos out there that they've got somewhere stashed away.
Wow. So music is played, and you're playing drums.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And some other just fond memories, just riding in the car, in my parents' car, just blasting music, just
All right.
it was just that was just what we did. Almost every car ride, it was just, hey, let's turn on some music, and then and all 4 of us, would be driving around and just singing at the top of our lungs. Just so it's
awesome. This is your mom, dad, you, and Ryan. Yeah.
Yep.
Just so everyone who's listening.
And then another really good memory I have is my brother and I, we would go over to our babysitter's house, and her younger brother, we would go back into his room, and he also played drums and stuff. He was kind of musical, and we would set up, as we would find as many cables. Doesn't matter what they were, where they came from. We would find as many cables as we could and run them just from this point of his bedroom to this other side,
boy.
and tons of cables everywhere. And we were pretending, that we were on stage, and we would pretend to be DC Talk. That was they were the big influence for us at that time. Right. And
so they could have been extension cords. It could have been just wires.
Yep, just random wires, just all over the floor. And we all took turns beating on a chair. Playing the drums and air guitar
awesome.
and all that.
I'm sure you've got long mullets or something here. That just about probably back in the day.
I don't know if we had mullets at that time, but again, I was probably 6 or 7. So
all right. And Ryan is the older,
maybe even younger, honestly. But yeah, Ryan's older. He's 17 months older than me. So
all right. So now you mentioned in the car you're jamming. So I'm assuming this is not just you're not playing hymns and VeggieTales.
No.
You're growing up as a child in what kind of music style?
Yeah,
what is the music that's played in your
from
home?
rock to heavy rock to even metal genre and
The heavy metal.
I mean, exactly like what you're saying. You don't headbang to like hymns and stuff like that. But my dad really was into, I think, more of a lot of the underground, the just kind of under the scene type music. He wasn't into the pop culture or any of that.
He's not listening to Michael Jackson or anything.
No. I mean, he may have. I just don't. Yeah. I don't really remember him turning that on. But I just know it was always, it was always anything in the rock genre. So
and it's playing loud and proud, right?
Yep.
The windows are down. You're singing and getting after it. Everybody.
Yep. All of us.
Your mom's throwing her hair around and going after it too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
That's cool. So, so at this point, you're hearing all of that. You're mimicking that. You're playing pretend drums and stuff, but you also learn to actually play.
Right.
What is it that you learn to play? What does Ryan play?
Yeah. So, like we've said already, like I've just the drumming has always just been my thing. Like that's always what I went to. It's what I grew up playing. But my brother, he starts out on drums just like I do, but later on, by the time, and we've got other interests and hobbies and stuff like that we're really into, leading up to this point. Though he was into skateboarding and then really got interested in playing guitar. So he picked up guitar like around age 13 and, picked it up and just exploded in his ability to play, just absolute, just talent, just natural talent. And picked it up, ran with it. And, we would listen to all these, groups and play their songs. Again, it was, a lot of rock music and stuff, bands like Stryper. Some of these, again, you probably won't recognize, but Guardian is one that stood out to me.
Okay.
Holy Soldier is one that really stands out to me. Another band called Deliverance, a band called Tourniquet.
Wow.
That's kind of the Christian underground rock, metal.
Heavy
and then,
stuff,
And then you've got the other side, the more secular side. You've got Dokken, you've got Bon Jovi, you've got Metallica, you've got Pantera.
Wow. Okay.
So that was the genre that we
This is
really,
what you just grow up hearing.
Yeah.
It's just natural in your home.
Yep.
Okay. So now, how about your mom and dad? They playing any instruments, doing anything?
My mom, no, she was just more of the singer, she was the one harmonizing all the time and stuff like that. My dad was more of the, my dad was more of the, he drumming was his thing growing up as well. So he instilled that in us.
Okay.
And then knew a little bit of guitar and showed Ryan, kind of the very basics. And then that's when Ryan, we both took what we learned from him and then we just ran with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you exploded as well. I mean, from when I knew you, it's always been incredible drummer. Your dad referred to you as the human metronome because he said, Caleb just doesn't get off of the rhythm or the tempo. He just stays on it. You can just count on him. No matter, some people, they start playing and they get excited and their tempo increases or decreases, whatever. But Caleb was just super consistent. So I remember him saying that years ago. So yeah.
So whenever I met you, I was 7 and you were like 15-ish.
Yep.
And they had come over for dinner. That's a different story and all this stuff. But at the time, we knew of y'all as these are the rock guys, because y'all had a band. And how long did y'all have a band by that time? Because again, I'm 7, you're 15,
right?
But y'all were kind of like, in a sense, an established band. Like, had gone and done concerts and all this kind of stuff.
So I was 12 when when my brother and my cousin, if you know Josh Romano, that's my cousin. He was into guitar before Ryan even was, and so once Ryan picked it up, and my cousin Josh was actually living with us at this time, we were like, hey, maybe we should start something. It's just the classic thing. But so I'm 12 years old, and we decide, let's having no clue what all this, what all it really requires, but we're like, let's start thinking of some names, and so some names that one of the first names we thought of was Doxology. Was one of the names for the for the band name, and then after probably like a day, we were like, man, let's go with something else, So then we went to Detox,
nice,
and then
Detoxology.
So we would begin playing, just again jamming in my parents' dining room. So we converted their dining room into the band room.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's basically our whole house pretty much became just a musical house.
Yeah.
Wow. And they're not bothered by that. They're celebrating it.
They're in full support. My mom absolutely loves it. Is just in there right alongside us, just listening and smiling. Of course, my dad, is doing all the same thing.
Yeah.
Walls are shaking.
Literally, walls are. Yeah. My at this time, we had bought a much nicer drum set, and I remember setting up our drums in their dining room, and at the bottom of I'm gonna kind of nerd out here for just a second. At the bottom of this drums, most drums, you have these legs that stick out of the bottom of the bass drum, so that the kick drum doesn't slide forward every time you push down on the pedal. So you can retract those spikes to where it's just the rubber feet on the rubber feet on the floor to prevent it from scooting. But then if you're on carpet, you can
get the spikes
spikes back out, and then again it'll prevent it from sliding.
Yeah.
So I, for whatever reason, had this idea. I'm going to set this blanket here because they had hardwood floors, and so I'm going to grab this blanket because the rubber it's still going to slide, with the rubber on the hard floor. So I'm going to set these blankets here, and then I'm going to stick those spikes out, and then set up my drum set on these blankets. Well, unfortunately, those spikes went all the way through those blankets, and just over time of playing, eventually, you remove the drum set, you pick up those blankets, and there's just massive, just gouges into the floor. So, but yeah, I mean, the whole house has turned into a musical house, and my cousin Ryan and I were all jamming in there, and we're starting to kind of write our own, songs. Try to, at least.
And you're like 12. How
old's Ryan? 12.
He's like 14.
Ryan's somewhere around that age. Josh 15, maybe 16ish. But our next door neighbor hears us just playing
about the neighbors
in that room, and so one day he just comes over, and I don't remember who answers the door, but anyways, he comes in, watches us play and stuff like that, and then he says, "Hey, I've been hearing you guys. I'm just letting you know I just booked you guys a gig, and it's in 2 weeks."
What?
And so we were just like
on the floor.
What?
Yeah.
We're all freaking out about it. And so he goes on his way, and we're just like, we don't have a single song written or anything like that. So we also don't even have a singer at this time.
Wow.
So, we're trying to figure out what in the world we're going to do. And so eventually my dad he enters into the picture, and he's like, of course he knows what all is happening. And then he's like, we all just agree, hey, my dad, you can sing.
Yeah.
You could sing for us.
Also sing for us.
And so he
can drive
he's like,
too, because we can't.
Sure, I'll be your he'll be the for the longest time, in his mind, I think was, or at least starting out, was I'll be the temporary for now
until they get past puberty.
Exactly.
Voices change.
And so we write, I think, like 4 or 5 songs within 2 weeks. And we do our first gig ever at the Texas Theater in Waxahachie, Texas Theater. That was our first
redone?
gig, and I think by this point I had just turned 13
Wow.
or something like that. So
do you have a name yet at this point?
at this point we're still under Detox.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
All right.
So that's what we do that show under that name, and then
People think you're coming off of drugs or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This 13-year-old
Yeah.
back in
Yeah.
like what 2005, I guess, or
Yeah.
something like that. 2006.
2000 actually 4. This would be
2004?
2004.
Wow.
Okay.
So
All right.
2005 could be, yeah.
Yeah.
But ever since then, we start playing just anywhere we can, everywhere. Anybody who will book us,
Yeah.
we start playing at bars, we start playing at churches, community events, different clubs. Again, just anyone who would
Yeah.
have us.
Yeah.
It was a crazy experience.
Yeah.
for sure.
So I was gonna say, so you officially land on a name that,
Yeah.
because by the time we met you, we knew this band with this different name, and so
Yeah.
how did you get to
so by the time we all connect, we're under a different name called Shatter Me. That my dad, he had this idea, how can we represent a life of surrender, to Jesus, and communicate that, through what we do, what we play, and so that was the name that we agreed on.
That's awesome.
So
Nice.
yeah,
So cool.
Yeah, it was the idea of coming to the end of me, shatter
Right.
me so that I can serve Christ.
Right.
Yeah.
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 It's awesome. Love
Yeah.
that.
And so again, you said you started when you were like 12, 13-ish, and y'all like toured and all that kind of stuff. You went all
Yeah.
sorts of places in the band. Like
Right.
went to Oklahoma. Where else did y'all go? What did y'all like? What did that look like? Touring?
So a lot of the places we traveled were, all over Texas, and then the surrounding states, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas. I think we played in Missouri, possibly New Mexico. I can't remember. But just the surrounding states, and some bands that we got to share the stage with. Again, we're in the Christian industry,
Right.
scene. So, we get to share the stage with POD at this massive,
Wow.
like country rodeo festival thing. It was cool.
Yeah.
But they were the headliners for that. Played a few shows with Disciple. Played a couple with Red in the
Yep.
Dallas area.
Yeah.
And did a run, like a 2-week run with the Cypher Down, and
Wow.
and then outside of all that, just again any place that would have us, we'd drive
Yeah.
out of state
Yeah.
and go
Yeah.
play. So
Did you get to meet like KJ52 or something like that?
we did play we did play a show with him
So cool.
as well. Yeah.
And so, just so everybody has a frame of reference, describe what a show of Shatter Me looks like, because
Yeah.
I don't know everybody has a context for what that is.
Everyone has
Yeah.
their own idea of what a rock concert.
Yeah,
Christian
right.
rock
Yeah,
concert.
or Christian rock. That's,
Yeah.
But what does that look like for everybody who's listening?
So at a rock show, it is the goal for the artist is you're trying to put on the most memorable, fun, energetic concert that people will ever see. Like
Right.
that's always the goal, for people to walk away and just be like, that was the craziest, most intense,
Yeah.
like my neck is sore after, headbanging
Yeah,
and,
his music went so
just going
hard.
crazy,
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not doing ballads and people aren't crying necessarily from how slow and emotional the songs are. It's more like
it really is. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the intense like anger vibe, in a sense.
And there's a lot of movement on stage. I mean, you're
Yeah,
headbanging,
yeah.
you're just plowing away on the drums,
Yeah. Yep.
sweating like crazy,
Yeah. Yep.
jumping.
I mean, doing guitar like in our later years as Shatter Me, like Ryan's doing guitar flips where he's flipping the guitar like around his back and catching it back, and then
Picking back
coming
up.
right back in on beat and
Jumping
know.
off those speakers onto the stage, all that stuff.
yeah. And what's crazy, you can find some of this on YouTube actually.
That's the part. Shatter
It's
Me.
kind of scary.
We just lost all
but
our
you
viewers
can.
right now.
Yeah, literally.
There you
Click
go.
away. Come back to the video.
But I mean the environment in this type of setting it's very intense, but it's also like something I really respect about my dad was the level of excellence that he really called us to.
Right.
And like, you know, my dad is and I would want the same thing even for my children. Like whatever you want to do,
Yep.
do your very best at it.
Sure.
You know, whatever that looks like.
Yep.
But my dad, and again, I really love the fact that he instilled this in us, that he called us to that. And in some settings, I remember some practices where we would do like a 45-minute set, you know, so if you average 5 minutes per song, you know, that's
whatever, nine songs.
9 songs. It could be 9 songs, you know, just give and take, whatever that show is asking for. But I remember doing practices and we would be, you know, we'd be like maybe on the last song of the set. And the thing that we all agreed on during that practice was, okay, we want to be so good at what we're doing and so tight in what we're doing that if any of us make one mistake on our instrument, on our vocal note, we started the whole set over from song 1. So, I mean, we did it like, we did it, I mean, it was dress rehearsal every time. Like after we would write a song and we figured out how the song was going to go and, you know, we practiced it and everything. Once that song would enter into our set list, you know, from once you start set list practice, it's perfect all the way through, and you better not mess up,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And so, you know, that's what we grew up in, you know, that was a part of that was just a part of what we did. That's what we modeled ourselves after, because all the other bands and the musical influences we looked up to, that's what we're going for.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
that's what we're up against, you know, with a musical, in the musical industry, you know, you have to be within the top 10% if you really want to make this, make it and do it as a living.
Yeah. And that's your aspiration at the time. It's like, okay, we're playing with these bands.
Yep.
We're getting seen by folks. We got to be on our game because our goal is to be like them.
Exactly.
Just to move up, get more invites,
get a
more
record.
concerts,
Yep.
do recordings, sell merch, all that stuff.
Yep.
That's where you're headed with all of this. It's good. It's good. Yeah. So, as Truett said, we meet Ryan and Caleb and their family 2007 in this period, and it's when we've started a church in Waxahachie, and Heather and I are going to be the youth group leaders as well as, you know, pastor and wife of the church. So we open our home. Our kids are teens; the older ones are at this point.
7.
Yeah, Truett's 7. So. This is where something new begins for Ryan and Caleb. Talk about what's new at this point as we start a youth group.
So we entered the scene late 2007. I think it might have been around September or October or something. And I'm 15 by this time. And, you know, after connecting with you guys, Ryan and I, we start attending the youth group, and what began there was this draw to what is worship music, you know what I mean? Like, so another side story that I think is really interesting is my dad also used to lead worship, and I would play drums for him at these other churches that he would lead at.
Okay.
And so it was like we grew up a little bit in that as well. But, you know, by this time, the style's a little different, you know.
Yeah.
Even the kind of worship that we do at more of a Baptist sounding church, you know, but more in belief, you know, where the other churches are, you know, maybe a little more assemblies, or, you know, there's a difference in the way you carry out your worship services, you know, in different settings. So, in this setting, it's, there's just something different about it. So, you know, we start attending the church on Sunday morning, and the worship leader at that time, we get connected with him, and now he's starting to ask Ryan and I to, hey, come help us lead worship and stuff like that. So, that kind of sets the stage for it starts pulling on our hearts in this other way, like, oh, okay, and the songs that we're doing, on a Sunday morning, it's like, this is speaking to me a little bit differently, than maybe the worship music that my dad would lead,
Right.
And so, but we started attending the youth, and as some other people are phasing out who did some of the worship,
Right.
Ryan and I are phasing in, and I think we just kind of saw the need there,
There was a need.
and so we were like, you know what, we can do this, So we just started leading worship at the youth group every Wednesday night, and I think that really began to plant a seed within me, at least. At that point, I wasn't aware of what all this moment was going to lead to.
Yeah, sure.
So,
So at that time, it's Ryan playing an acoustic, and you've got, what are you playing at this time?
just a little hand drum.
Yep.
One of the first times I remember is I just had one of my snare drums on my lap or on a pillow or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I had one of my a brush. If you're familiar with percussion, it's a type of stick. They got little springy metal pieces at the end. It just gives it a nice little soft sound. And so I had that in my right hand, and I would play a certain beat with my left hand. And but after doing that a few times, then I moved over to like a djembe. So
And that's all new for y'all. It's new for us,
Yep.
and it was new and it was fresh back in
Yeah,
that day.
it
And
was.
a lot.
Yeah.
Y'all were still learning. We were too, but we've got starting to get 15, 20 young people in our living room, and it makes for a great time. Just real, honest, real playing. Students are learning songs. We're all singing together. It's really a powerful time, but very different. Sitting in a living room
compared to what we're used to,
with one little drum and one guitar versus being up on stage,
loud,
this
intense,
loud, aggressive, kind of angry.
Like you were
style
saying,
music.
the goal at a concert was we're going to get the most crowd participation absolutely as possible and make this the most memorable time possible.
Right.
On
We want
now-
people to walk away in a rock concert setting, walking away saying, "Man, that band was awesome."
Yeah,
You
those
know what I
guys.
mean?
That's what it's
They're
about.
it.
Yeah.
And now
I
to
want to
go
buy
into
some merch.
exactly, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
And now to go into a living room setting where it's like I'm playing a snare on a pillow with my hand in a brush, and Ryan, my brother's playing an acoustic guitar
Yeah.
quietly, relatively, in a living room.
And no one said, "And now, shout at me."
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
Yeah, it's like, all right, now we're gonna pray and then we're gonna have some worship. So it's like,
Exactly.
and then the mindset still, I'm sure there's now a shift of like, okay, this doesn't seem like I need to have the same mindset here whenever I'm playing as Shatter Me as I do here
Yeah.
whenever I'm in the living room. It's a totally different
Definitely
vibe,
different. Yeah.
and it's a
mindset.
different presentation. It's a different heart behind it.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. So
Absolutely.
I can
Yeah.
imagine that's like,
Yeah.
Yep.
It's different.
a lot stirring in there.
Yeah.
So whenever you are transitioning into all of this stuff here at the youth and in the church and all this, what is going on with Shatter Me at the time then? Because are y'all still like
Yeah.
concerts every weekend or?
Yeah, Shatter Me's still very active. Like we're still writing. We're actually very heavy in the process of recording at this point.
And like
we had done-
self-recording or is it like going to,
well, we did a lot of self-recording leading up to this particular time, and by this time we're starting to work with Decipher Down. Actually, they started taking us under their wing, and
wow.
they started showcasing us a little bit here and there, just to the industry, and we really started. We were about to start getting really connected to label executives. I mean,
All the stuff.
all,
The
just
music
all
industry.
The, all the things.
It's about to
yeah,
break wide open. What
right,
you're hoping.
right.
Yeah.
Is what we're thinking, right? Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're still going strong. Still performing regularly, and throughout this period, we have, some band member changes and stuff like that. So we're trying to figure out all that as well, but things are still going strong. But then there's a huge just shift in the way things end up carrying on. And just almost it took me definitely by surprise, just the abrupt complete crash that Shatter Me came to. It was just things are going,
like looking up,
things are going, it's like, okay, man, this actually looks like the things are about to happen here.
This sucker we've been doing since I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
Here I am.
I've spent,
and you're like, how old at this time?
I've spent 7 or 8 years putting all my eggs
in this,
into this dream of mine,
Yeah.
And I mean, to the point of, I don't know if you want to say dropout, but I leave public school.
Yeah.
I'm going to Red Oak schools, and after 10th grade,
that was fun.
and my parents are in support again. They're very supportive, and they believe, in what we're doing. But I leave and I finish out in homeschooling, so that I can fully
devote your time
this,
and you can go and tour throughout the week, all this kind of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, but 2011 comes around, and it's crazy how I can't even remember necessarily in detail, but it just all comes to a crashing halt. And I'm completely, I don't know so much about Ryan, but I know for me, it was heartbreaking. It was devastating for me. And again, because that's what I'm putting even my own worth in, and my identity in.
Yeah.
That's your future. It's it's the vision for your life.
Yeah.
So that starts to fall apart, and it actually does.
Yeah.
It completely stops.
Yep.
So there's a lot that happens in these years. Of course, you're still a part of the church. You're leading worship more in the youth group and involved with the church actually at the same time.
Yep.
Then we move forward a couple of years to 2015. So there's an event that happens then that really begins to increase the change, I guess, and well, I'll stop talking again. Talk about what happens at that time in the midst of all this tension and wondering, okay, now what about my life? Where am I headed? All of that. What happens?
Yeah.
Just real quick, before we come from 2011 to 2015, are you still in the music scene between that? Then?
So Shatter Me ends. My brother and I, again, music it's what we do.
Yeah.
It's all we know.
Yeah.
So we decide we're just going to move on. You can make a great living and still in the cover scene, doing a bunch of cover gigs. People are booking cover bands all the time,
Restaurants, parties.
Yep. I mean, corporate events, it's there's just as much of a desire for, at least at that level, POD level, red level, there's the same amount of desire, but in that other scene, the cover scene, and honestly, you're more likely to make a better living right off the bat, establishing yourself as a cover band versus an original artist. Yeah, because if no one knows if no one knows your songs, no one cares. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but if you're doing songs that everybody knows, then then they love you.
Cool. Yeah.
So that's kind of the scene that we step into. So Ryan and I step into that for, we're doing that for like two years, maybe 3 years, something along those lines.
Yeah. You gave up a lot of Friday and Saturday nights to do all of that.
Yes.
We had a lot of Mexican food watching you do that. Restaurants.
Yes. Yep. I mean, at this time, Encounter is Saturday nights.
Yeah. The church we were leading at the time.
And I'm kind of one of the main drummers by this time, but all that, now I'm having to make a living doing this, money, so we're out doing gigs late into the night, early morning, getting back home, and so that's what we step into. But to get back to Brian's question, at some point towards the end of these 2.5 years or so, and during these 2.5 years, I'm searching for my purpose. What has God really called me to do? Because the cover scene, I hate it.
Yeah.
I absolutely despised it. Like if we were doing one gig, and during one of our breaks, we took a couple breaks during a 3 or 4 hour gig, and some random person comes up to, I can't remember if he wrote it down on a napkin or something and handed it to Ryan, or if he actually came up to Ryan. But whichever way he said it, what he communicated was, man, you guys sound great, but if your dadgum drummer would stop watching the TV and focusing on the sport that's up there, and actually look like he's enjoying what he's doing, So basically, with comments like that, it's like, well, yeah, man, I don't enjoy what I'm doing. I'm just here to, get a paycheck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And, and people who are in that, you really have to be in that scene. And if you want to last, you have to enjoy it, And so what I'm fighting is, just complete unfulfillment. I don't like doing it. I don't like the songs we're doing. Some of the songs, honestly, can even be inappropriate in some ways.
You're doing secular covers at this point to fit whatever the audience is.
Exactly, that's what
they
the people want, know. And so after a couple of years of doing that, Ryan and I, we're still writing. We even started our own band titled She Dances.
Okay,
and we continued to write and record, and this was a little bit of a different genre. This was more of the pop side of things, which by this time we had acquired a taste and a like for it, So, we start down that path, and, but again, 2.5 years into that, for me, it was just like, I don't like doing this. Like, I don't want this. I remember telling Ryan, I really want to start pursuing maybe more worship based, let's start writing more worship based, Christian songs.
Yeah.
And so
I love all this because here God gives you a talent. You have an initial vision where you're headed.
Right.
It starts off in that direction. It falls apart. And inward dissatisfaction starts growing in you.
Yeah.
There's got to be something else. The talent is there. The desire is there. But there's a dissatisfaction with where you are, and then they're starting to awaken something new.
Yes.
So
yes.
I love all of that setup. That is such a consistent pattern with how God works in our life.
Yep.
He gives us this desire, dream, passion, gifting, talents, skills. We try to pursue it in our own way.
Yep.
Do our own thing. That comes to an end, and then the real whole develops. But it's there that usually answers come when we seek the Lord. So now let's continue the story because something does happen in the midst of this gaping moment of dissatisfaction, longing for something more, knowing I've got this talent. What happens?
Yeah. So in 2015, this is early 2015. This is March or April. Actually, it may have even been late 2014 that Brianna tells me. So at this point, I've communicated to Ryan what's kind of been on my heart. Hey, worship music. I feel like I need to be leading some people into a different atmosphere. And so, and then I voiced this to Brianna. We're just dating at this time, and she says, hey, I came across this worship conference, and I'm just like, okay. So she sends me this link to this worship conference, and it's out in Atlanta. I'm just like, oh my gosh! So that means I'm buying a conference ticket. I'm buying a plane ticket. I already am not making the greatest amount of income. So, but she tells me about it, and I look into it. And I was like, okay, this looks really awesome. And so I end up flying out there to it, and it could not have been a more better conference, I think, for me in that moment, because it was at Passion City, which is where Chris Tomlin at that time is the head worship leader at this time. And he's training up other worship leaders, Christian Stanfill. At this time, Christy Nockels is there. Matt Redman is still heavily involved. All these just great worship leaders that we know of. And so I get there, and it's the first night of the conference. Christian Stanfill and his team, they open up with powerful worship service, and then I can't remember who it was that spoke after that. I think it was Louis Giglio. And so he speaks for a little bit, and then he says, hey, y'all stick around or go out into the lobby or whatever, and here in just a few minutes, Chris Tomlin's going to come out and, going to lead us in an evening night of worship,
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, heck yeah, let's, this is, I'm already like, man, I feel at home already, in this type of environment. And so, we go out of the room, we come back in when it's time, and, Chris Tomlin just leads, a good 30, 45 minute, set of worship songs. And one of the last ones, probably my all-time favorite Chris Tomlin song right now, still to this day, is Love Rain Red. And so that song, and the reason why it has such an impact on me is because that was a song that I feel like the Lord clearly spoke to me and gave me clear direction. And it was during the chorus, one of the choruses of that song, that I really felt like, okay, I can seriously give my life to Jesus and his calling that he has on me. And so
you're already a believer at this point.
Yeah.
This is a new level of surrender.
Yes, absolutely. And so I've never been very expressive during worship. I couldn't even tell you if I've ever lifted my hands during a worship service or any of that.
And you're probably listening with a musician's ear, where you're watching all the instruments, watching the performance, watching the lights, watching
coming from a performance based, performance driven. There's it's easy, even still to this day, it's easy to get stuck in listening mode. How are they doing this? How are they doing that? So, but at this moment, I'm moved past all that. And for the first time, I just felt like, okay, at the cross, I surrender my life. I'm in awe of you. The words of that song.
Yeah.
I'm in awe of you, where your love ran red and my sin washed white. I owe all to you. I owe all to you, Jesus. And so when he sang that chorus, I just felt this like pull on my heart. Like, I need to lift my hands and surrender and in worship to the Lord right now, because if I don't, I think I'm going to fall over right here, that my heart's going to stop, that it's going to explode, because again, if I don't do this, I feel like I'm going to die right here. Yeah. And so in that release of just lifting my hands up and singing that with all that's in me, with full belief. And I believe that was the moment God was calling me, hey, this, what you're experiencing right now, like the way you feel my presence right now, is what I want you to lead people into.
Wow.
And so I was just like, okay. Yeah. Okay, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, I get what you're calling me to. And in that moment, I just remember in my mind just saying, yes, God, let's do it. Let's do it.
So all the tension, all the wondering, all the confusion, it all kind of dissolves in that moment. And there's a sense of clarity, like, this is what I'm supposed to do, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Wow.
So good.
That's powerful in that moment. So this is early 2015-ish, right in there. So I'm sure at this point, like most people, once God shows you something like that, you start thinking, okay, well, how's this supposed to happen? How in the world? Because everything I know is recording industry, performance artist. How do I get into that realm of being a worship leader? How does that come to pass?
Yep.
And I know you're praying at this point. Brianna, our daughter, is as well.
Yep.
And we all are kind of aware what's going on. So as is common with the way God works, he doesn't work just in isolation with one person. He works kind of in a concert.
Yes.
In concert
Absolutely.
with others.
Yep.
And so at the same time that's happening, we have just begun Vertical Church Ovilla at this point. And there came a need for a worship director. And so I remember the day that came available.
Yeah.
And that opportunity arose, and I made a phone call to Caleb.
Yep.
You remember that day?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you were on your way to
vertical softball game. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So I know that comes for you as an answer to prayer, because like, okay, well, here's the way I'm going to now do what God called me to do.
Yep.
And just side note here, that is often the way it happens.
Yep.
God will put the desire and the dream in your heart, and then as you surrender to him, then he opens the door.
Absolutely.
It's not the other way around.
Right.
It starts with that. So that happens. You come here, and then all of a sudden, this is a completely different world, because now you're not playing the drums. You're not the guy behind the scenes at the back where someone else is leading. You're the guy up front. You're the guy leading, and it's not just you. Now there's a band and there's singers.
Yeah.
This is all, though you're familiar with the setup, now you're the guy up front. How are you able to make that transition from behind the scenes to front of scenes, from being the support piece to being the lead piece?
Right. I mean, like we say all the time, nobody steps into greatness. Nobody steps into success.
Without working
But we stumble a lot on the way in that process into that success. And, and I like to think that we've never like arrived, there's always, there should always be this future, place to grow into, you know? But yeah, my experience from, my past in music, has prepared me for this. I think the shift that I've had to make is, leading a team, leading other musicians, being the guy up front, again, I've had to learn to step out of my shell a whole lot more than
because you're comfortable being the quiet one in the room. You're comfortable like everybody else.
If everybody else has the louder voice, there's no need to, you know what I mean? There's just no need for more.
That's Caleb's philosophy. Yeah. Except when it comes to worship now. So go ahead.
But I don't have this like grand answer for that other than it's just something I've had to grow into,
But God gives you the ability to do this.
Absolutely.
Everything you've done in the past prepared you for that moment.
Yes.
So you can stand in the front and say, I know exactly what the drums ought to be doing right now.
Yep.
I know exactly what the guitars ought to be doing right now.
Right.
I know what the vocals ought to sound like.
Yep.
And so I'm sure there's probably some aha moments in all of that. Like, oh my word, I see it, God. I see what you did here.
Like how you've used my past, and brought it full circle. And,
all the rehearsals in the
absolutely.
living room, all that my dad, encouraged us to do, all the times we stood in front of others, all the times that I practiced, all the things that I learned about drum and guitars and vocals, everything.
All in preparation for this.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, leading worship and performance artist has a lot of similarities. You're still standing in front of people. You're still playing some music, but at the same time, they're very different.
Yeah.
You're not performing now to gain applause and sell some merch.
Right.
You're leading people to worship God. This is different. This is not about the performance of a show, as you mentioned earlier. This is about the sincerity of your own heart, the sincerity of all the other hearts on stage, and helping people get to the place of meeting with God in the room.
Yep.
You're not writing the songs now to gain money. You're leading worship to gain the hearts of the people for the heart of God.
Yes.
This is different. So this is a change. What has that change been like for you?
Yeah.
This is kind of the big question here. How do you make this shift from performance artist over to worship leader? What has that been like?
So for me, it has been the most freeing thing. Just to know that none of this is about me, and being, I guess it's just God's perfect plan, being my personality, I guess, is, naturally the behind the scenes guy, the supporting role, and who generally will not intentionally place themselves in the spotlight, and so, and I guess because that's kind of more of my natural mindset, it's just been freeing to know, like, He's grown me to be and given me the strength and courage and confidence to step into that role, the lead up front.
Yep.
And that's what I've had to grow into, but it's given me peace and even freedom in my heart to know that this is no longer about me. This is about
so good
God and His people meeting with Him, and collectively and standing in agreement with each other, singing His praises, declaring His truth to Him around ourselves, over our own mind and heart, and over those around us, And I think that was one thing. Again, was a seed planting back in youth. Was it was just this night and day contrast of, okay, these live rock shows, it's about us. And then you step into a setting like that and you're just like, I can't tell you what it was and what it even is now, but it's almost like this, you've got a congregation singing and usually they're facing a platform, but you've got a platform also facing a congregation, just like in a regular show. But instead of the call, for the people on the platform in a performance setting,
right?
You're not singing for, like you're saying, the applause of the people, but it's like, okay, hey, y'all don't watch me on stage, but I'm also not receiving what you're singing or why you're clapping or any of that. Like, I'm not receiving that for my own glory. Like, we're literally doing all of this to adjust our focus upwards.
Nice. I love it. Yeah. So in a sense, the audience has changed. It's not the people in the room.
Absolutely.
It's God Himself.
Yes.
And,
Absolutely.
and directing people to Him. That's good. So I'm sure in that there's been challenges. I'm sure there's the tension and the war, because when you walked in a pattern for so long, you tend to kind of default to the pattern.
Right.
What has been some of the challenges you've faced in this process?
Yeah. Without a doubt, the biggest challenge that I face every day in this setting is remembering what the difference is between perfection and excellence. Because excellence is not achieving perfection, where, and again, in my past, perfection is the goal. It is, and sure, if mistakes were made, the goal was hopefully no one noticed it.
Right.
But in this setting, it's about bringing our very best to the Lord in a heart of surrender, a heart of worship. But so knowing the difference between that, but also finding the balance of getting others to realize that same thing, to get others to realize, look, I'm not looking for you to be the perfect musician, to be the perfect vocalist, but I do want to help push you to the point where you're bringing your very best and in excellence. Yeah. And so that's the biggest challenge that I face.
Yeah, because now as worship leader, you're wanting the people on stage like yourself to have, if there's a place of excellence, yes, it is in our skill,
Sure.
singer, instrument, but it's an excellent spirit.
Yes.
That really, I mean, that's what you want. You want sincere, humble, passionate
Yes.
hearts involved. That's the greater goal. I mean, because
Mm-hmm.
again, if you're a performing artist, you could have terrible day. You could be involved in some terrible things,
Yep.
Yeah.
but you get on stage and you flip into performance
Character.
mode,
Yep.
and then you are that character that
Correct.
you want people to see,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
you perform and you pretend to that level. But in a worship setting, I mean, Jesus is the one who said, "Those that worship me will worship me in spirit and in truth." So real worship has to come not just in the proclamation of truth or the performance, but in the spirit of, again, humility,
Yes.
and passion,
Yeah.
and desire, and
So good.
that's become one of your strengths, I think,
Yeah.
in yourself and in the people that are with you on the stage.
Yes.
and what it's creating in the room as well. A genuine, a sincere spirit
Yeah.
to worship the Lord, and there's power in that. There's greater power in that than the most highly skilled musician,
Right.
I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I've seen both. I've seen
Yep.
highly skilled musicians on stage without excellent spirit,
Yes.
or
Yes.
righteous spirit or humble spirit, and that has an impact on the room.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
you reverse it as well. I've also been in some settings. This is not true for Caleb, where a person's spirit has been right, but their playing has been
Sloppy.
sloppy, mediocre at best. God still use it, but
Sure.
when you get into the place where you've got humble spirit and you've got
Excellent.
Yes.
well-crafted craft.
Yes.
Whoo!
Yes.
You
Absolutely.
eliminate all the barriers in that moment, and God moves, and that's what I see happening here at Vertical through you.
And again, we're not where we are as a worship ministry just all of a sudden. Like
Yep.
when I first came on staff here, like that is something I have and still have to work through every time is getting to this place where, because before, again, I'm coming in from this other setting.
Yeah.
So in a sense, that's kind of how I'm driving the ship. I'm looking to replicate the exact MP3 that I'm sending out. And then when that isn't achieved, I walk away frustrated. This was a terrible day.
Yeah.
It didn't sound just like that. So something else I've had to learn is, in which I think is actually way better, is instead of replicating, then contribute. But where can we find contribution compared to replication? And so that's just been a really big thing.
That's good. Yeah. And going all in on, again, now the goal is not to just sell merch and records
Right.
and get some applause, but to see people's hearts truly changed.
Yes.
To experience the glory of God in
Yep.
a moment. And you can't do that without being in tune with the Spirit of God and be led by the Spirit of God.
Yep.
So I know there's been challenges along the way, but I'm sure there are some new joys now. And you've talked a little bit about this. What would you say are some of the greatest joys about what you do now? What do you love most about it?
I kind of hit on, being in a worship service environment, just the joys of being able to lay aside my own personal benefits out of this, own self-glory, glorification, being able to just set all that aside and be like, I am actually so thankful this isn't about me, because if it was, I think everybody would see through it,
Well, and there's increased pressure and stress.
And if people saw, again, the only perfect person to ever walk the earth is Jesus. So that's none of us on the platform. So, to feel like you have to measure up to that before stepping on stage, like, dude, you've already stepped up and lost.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you've got this mindset of, if you're stepping up on the platform with that mindset, you've already destroyed the heart behind why you're doing it, and or the goal, And so, just uniting the congregation and to see, to be in awe of Jesus and his love for us.
Yeah.
And then one thing I've really began to grow, find a joy and a love for is just training others up, like
It's awesome.
finding what someone's strengths and weaknesses are, and helping them come alive in those strengths and help them just increase those weak areas. Like just trying to take someone and just coach them up and be like, this is what I see in you, you know, this is what you're good at, so lean into that, lean into your strengths. And then, behind the scenes, let's work on those other areas, you know? And then the other thing I love is I love the attention to detail that we put into our service planning.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, not for perfection, but because out of excellence, but also because we want to give our very best.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And with intentionality.
Yep.
Our services are planned intentionally. I had someone this past week say, hey, it sure seems like y'all are putting together songs that fit with the message. Is that what's happening? I said, that is exactly what's happening. I appreciate you noticing, because there's a lot of time and prayer and discussion and sensitivity that goes into song selection, lighting, transitions, speaking, all designed toward helping people experience the glory of God.
Yes.
So
It's not just 3 years of coincidence that we've been putting songs together that match.
No. Yeah. So I love that. I love the fact that what now you're getting to experience the fulfillment of everything that God had put in your heart originally.
Yes.
And it's happening. And I love that you said, even the greater fulfillment is giving myself away to help someone else experience that, to find another musician, another singer, find their gift, to have, to train up. You're working with other teenagers now who were where you were in the youth group back in that day. And they're learning to do that. You're teaching a new generation. That's the essence of discipleship.
Yes.
You're giving yourself away,
Absolutely.
you're replicating yourself, you're pouring yourself out for others. So I love all of that, because what that is another word that is important to you, I know, is the word overflow. Because out of the filling of what God has done in you, it's overflowing into other people. And we see that, obviously, in your life.
Yep.
So
He's got a song on Spotify called Overflow.
Yeah, there you go.
Check it out.
Good.
Stream it.
Yep. Okay, so you went through this journey of looking for God's will for your life. Thought it was one thing. Went through some time of just realizing it's not.
Yeah.
It was some uncertainty, some darkness. I have the very same pattern in my life. Truett has the very same pattern in his life. I would think every believer does. So what do you say to the person who is looking still? They say, man, I thought this was the direction of my life. And they're somewhere in that journey. They're either at that part, or they're at the part where it has fallen apart, or they're in the day of waiting. What do you say to them in that moment?
I would say rest in the season that you're in. Don't try to rush through it quickly. But
Definitely.
recognize, learn to know that he's equipping you. He's training you up for something, for the next season that he has for you. Something that's bigger than you, that's for your good, but for his glory. And
It's good.
That's been the biggest thing, I think, that I've learned is I'm just going to rest here. I'm not gonna be complacent. I'm not just gonna sit still and just wait for things to happen.
Right.
I think it's important for us to remember as well. We have to seek. We have to knock. We have to try to knock on doors. And
you made the decision to go to Atlanta for a conference.
Exactly. Yep. And I made I started looking into other avenues of, hey, are there any churches hiring? Hiring worship leaders, and I started down that path, and it just be obedient where you are, but learn to live in it with peace and knowing that he's equipping you for something. So
It's good. And it all reminds me of a couple of verses that are important to me and to anybody in that process. And I've seen it happen over and over and over again. God holds true to his word. Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart this is my insert here, even when you don't know what's going on.
Yep.
And lean not on your own understanding, parentheses, trying to always feel like you got to figure it out yourself.
Yep.
Yes.
In all your ways, acknowledge him. In all the ways that he has gifted you, called you, that he has you in. And he shall direct your paths. He assumes that responsibility and says, I got this. I'm going to direct it. It may not be in the time, way that you thought, but I will direct it, what God promises. And that has proven true for you. I mean, here you are in that place today. And I'm sure at this point, there's still some other dreams that are out there ahead of you, you know, things that you still are longing for and desire, but you're still doing now what you learned. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, you're acknowledging him, and he will direct your paths. I mean, so
Absolutely.
that's not a one-time learned process. It is learned. It's intended to be learned once, but then it's intended to be the pattern.
Lived
this is
out.
The pattern you live
Yes.
by. It's not just a one and done. It's a one and now repeat. So I love that. I love how God has worked in your life. I love that we get to be a part of all this and get to see God playing it out. And I'm very glad that people now get to hear your story.
Yeah.
And get to hear a little bit more in the deep dive of Caleb's life. So anything else either of you want to add today? It's good
Go
stuff.
check out Shatter Me.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Probably won't ever see those days again, right?
No.
No.
Sadly.
Just a flat no on that.
Yeah. Just a no.
All right. Well, good. Well, man, I hope you've enjoyed it today as much as we have. Come join us at Vertical Church Ovilla. See what God's doing here. See Caleb lead in worship.
Yep.
And be part of what we do. We lift him up and lift him out. So thanks, Caleb.
Thank you.